All right, so we created our file structure and we brought our images into the folder over there. Now we need to put a Lightroom catalog in place so that we can actually start to get to work in Lightroom. So I'm going to launch Lightroom, which I have in my dock down here, Lightroom Classic. If I didn't have it in my dock, then I could come up here to the Creative Cloud in my menu bar at the top, or I could search for it, or I could go to my Applications folder and launch Lightroom Classic. Whatever way you do it, we need to launch Lightroom Classic so that we can get to work in it. The first time you launch it, it's going to come up with this message that says that there isn't a catalog, which makes perfect sense. We haven't used Lightroom yet, so there isn't a catalog. I'm going to say choose a different catalog, and it's going to bring up a list of what would be catalogs if I had opened them previously, but there aren't any, so there aren't any there. And now I'm going to say create a new catalog. And at this point, I get to name my catalog, and I'm going to call it Photo 180, and I'm going to do an underscore LR for Lightroom dash my first initial last name. Again, this is for a class, and so I kind of want this to read right for the class so that I can see it. But you can name this folder whatever you want to name it. I would name it something a little bit descriptive. It's an overall thing, right? So not descriptive like what your shoot was, but descriptive like a class or maybe a client that if you're doing photography professionally or some other sort of larger bucket that'll capture all of this information. I'm going to make sure that I'm in my pictures folder, which is where I have my Photo 180 main folder, which is that folder we created to put all of our images in. I want it to be right in that same folder right next to it, not inside of my Photo 180 main folder, but right next to it so that I kind of have it all together there. And at that point, I'm ready to hit create. Don't go quickly to the create button or the save button or the OK button or whatever it is. Always make sure you know where you're putting your files so that you can go and find those files later. So now I know where I'm putting it. I have it named correctly. I'm going to hit create. And when I hit create, it's going to open Lightroom and that catalog. And it may have to update some stuff. It does its little housekeeping. Lightroom does a really good job of sort of managing all of this stuff for us. So we don't have to worry too much about that. Just kind of let it do its thing. And you can see now along the top that I have my Photo 180 LR W hair .lrcat, which stands for Lightroom Catalog. And it's open and we're ready to now start working in Lightroom. I just want to double check things. So I'm going to go up to Lightroom Classic and I'm going to quit. And when I quit it, it's going to close this catalog. The dialog comes up that says, do you really want to quit? You can check the box so that it doesn't show this again if you just don't want to be bothered to say yes each time. Or you can just use it as sort of a safety measure to not accidentally fall out of Lightroom. Once we quit out of Lightroom, it's going to drop us back into our Finder. I'm going to go up here and open a new Finder window, go into my Pictures folder, look for my catalog that I just created, and there it is, Photo 180 underscore LR dash W hair. And inside of that folder are these 4 files. There may be more files if Lightroom is open. Lightroom creates and manages all of these files in here. And again, it's doing what it needs to do kind of behind the scenes to make sure that everything is that everything's kept right and is able to be used. So there's 3 files that we will not touch. This one that says, any of them that say data at the end of them, we're not concerned with those. They just need to be there. It's something that Lightroom will deal with. What we want is this one here, that it's our .lrcat, and this is our catalog. And now that we have this catalog, we can do something kind of cool, which is we can launch Lightroom directly from this catalog. So if I double click on this catalog, it should launch Lightroom for me. So I double click on it and Lightroom launches. And it should open and it should be that catalog. And there I can verify across the top that it is that catalog. And so everything looks good. And now we're ready to start importing our images.